The federal government took control of Silicon Valley Banks, a top bank in the tech sector, on March 10th after its share price rapidly plummeted. New York regulators announced on March 12th that they have taken control of Signature Bank, known for real estate lending and serving clients tied to the cryptocurrency industry. Quote, the bottom line is this. Americans can rest assured that our banking system is safe. Your deposits are safe, Biden said during a press conference at the White House on March 13th. Let me also assure you we will not stop at this. We'll do whatever is needed. Oh, boy. I love how when East Palestine has this massive chemical spill, he didn't even show up. He didn't even mention it. Okay, he mentioned it. Don't get me wrong. But there's no bailouts. They don't care about the people who live there. But when millionaires and billionaires in Silicon Valley have their woke tech sector threatened, he comes out on TV and says at 9 a.m. of all times, Joe Biden waking up at 9 a.m. saying, we're going to take care of this. Nothing to worry about. Here's what I think. I hate to go on a show with as many viewers as this and be like, the end is nigh or something like that. But Joe Biden has to come out and say this. He has to, because if he doesn't, there's a run on the banks. Yep. And if people go on TV and say anything other than everything is A-okay, then there's a run on the banks. So that's the default position of every personality in media, whether it's true or not, I don't know, is to come out and pretend like everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense because your bank's insured for $250,000 per account. So 99% of Americans, banks can fail. FDIC, they're insured. You have nothing to lose. So it's amazing to me that Biden is panicking and doing this stuff for the ultra rich. You have more than $250,000. So for Silicon Valley Bank, he's just helping out big tech companies and rich investors in big tech companies because normal people who had deposits at Silicon Valley Bank have nothing to worry about. Most people don't have $250,000 sitting in a checking or a bank account. They had nothing to lose.
Yep. And so what they're going to be doing is apparently the FDIC will cover deposits above $250K. And apparently, I guess BuzzFeed had all their money in Silicon Valley Bank. Well, now I'm really encouraging no bailouts. Bye-bye.
They shouldn't.
It doesn't benefit us. It hurts the normal people because that means federal government's bailing it out. That means more debt. That means more inflation that everyone, including poor people, will pay. And this is just a move to help rich people who have more than $250,000 in big companies and banks. It makes no sense to be doing this.
Well, there were, like, I was listening to a space today. Most of the day I was listening to spaces and just trying to wrap my head around what's going on. And from what I can gather is the biggest worry is contagion to other banks. So we've got two of the biggest bank failures in American history happening over the course of the past weekend. I am of the opinion that if the government's going to bail everyone out, or bail the banks out, because the government has basically taken responsibility for any failures in the banking industry. They've bailed out everybody every time that there's been any kind of the
rich elites.
No, well,
banks.
Banks. I mean, to be fair, they printed a lot of money. And whenever the government prints money and it goes to the people, it ends up with the big banks and the big corporations anyways, because everyone gets that money and they spend it. It's not like people go and they sit on it when they get, if you get $500 from the government, when the government, was passing out cash, people didn't sit on that. And it wasn't enough money to change anyone's life or that they're that they're going to invest with it anyways. So that money just ends up in the big corporations' hands anyways, because people spend it. So they're just going to continue to print money because that's what they have to do. So when they get together again, when the Fed gets together again, instead of doing 50 basis points, it's likely they're going to do 25. It's possible they're going to do 0, and then they'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen between now and then, obviously, but they're going to take the brake off the raising of rates because they can't have the rate. I can't keep interest rates, keep raising interest rates the way that they are with this kind of monetary situation in the U.S.
Or they want to provoke loans to the banks, basically. So Bannon asked me on Friday, Steve Bannon, why it's a Ponzi scheme, this economic system that we're in. And I gave him like a half answer. I said that it's because we're borrowing money from our banks, our institutions, our government is borrowing money from the Federal Reserve and then promising to pay them back with interest. The only way to get that interest is to borrow more money from them at interest to pay back the interest, which now we owe interest on The new borrow, so we have to borrow more to pay back the interest on the interest. And the real Ponzi is when what happens is that money goes to the banks. Then the banks loan out to the common American for mortgages, and then they have to pay the interest. They push the interest down to the small guy.
Sort of.
And so this whole system is banked off these 40-year interest payments by American people, constantly paying more than they borrowed to fund this Federal Reserve usury.
Well, I mean, it's sort of to fund that, but remember, like when you are getting a mortgage, you're getting a house too. So
If you pay the debt, it's technically owned by the bank until you pay them back.
Well, yeah, but you get to live in the house. It's not a one-sided operation, is what I'm saying. I understand what you're saying, that it's frustrating that you have to pay more than what you're borrowing, but that's why the banks are in business. So that way, like, they'll lend you the money, you pay them more than they actually lended you. That's the business model.